Stephanie. I am from upstate New York. So most people think of New York City. I am hours away from New York City in the mountains of the Adirondacks, which is just this beautiful place. And I own a brick and mortar service-based business. I'm a massage therapist. I specialize in working with people who have fibromyalgia. One of the biggest lessons I learned about being an alchemist is that I have all of these ideas. And so that translates to what looks very different in my massage studio than most massage studios. And I'm really excited because I am about to launch a new program where I work with people who have fibro online to share all of my ideas about self-care. So I'm also a connector and a nurturer, very, very close. They're like points apart. So I resonate most with my alchemist.
And what I want to hear from you, right, is when you did that first quiz. And you know what, actually some alchemists join SMA without doing the quiz, which is always interesting in itself too, because you kind of just you went, okay, I get it. Who am I, right? But when you first heard the strengths and challenges of the alchemist, what was your first big aha?
Wow. So I so resonate with what you just said and the idea of like permission to be who you are, because I feel like in this business world, and I realize like as a massage therapist, we kind of have permission to be a little alchemy-ish, right? It's sort of accepted, but even for me, those people in my world, they didn't own the businesses and they didn't do well. Like they could be amazing massage therapists, but their businesses were not thriving or growing, and so many were like closing their practices, and that was really disheartening for me. So hearing that, wait a minute, like I'm a little weird and that's okay. And it was also super, I think the most important aha of that was that it just validated everything that I knew about myself to be true, and that it was okay. And also, it's okay if I'm not good at follow through. It's okay if the things that are my challenges, for them to be my challenges, right? Because in the business world, from that like masculine standpoint, that we come to know that it's not acceptable. So to be able to accept myself and go, wait, I can look at those gifts and I can thrive. It's okay if these are my strong things and these aren't my strong things. So yeah, for me, having the permission, like you said, and the validation was a total game changer. It changed everything about how I looked at myself and my business.
I want to hear though about some of how these sabotages of your archetype, especially before you knew what they were. So it could be either, you know, that you commit to the wrong thing and then realize your mistake, or, you know, you buy a million domain names, or, you know, you've been trapped like my friend, or, you know, you haven't read stuff and you've made mistakes. Like, where has that kind of been a little bit of your downfall in your business?
Yeah, so I'm also a nurturer and a connector, and I work with people who need a lot and warranted, because they don't get a lot of attention from the people who should be giving it to them. So one of my biggest struggles is absolutely giving my time for free, giving literally my hands for free. That was a huge struggle. And then interestingly enough, I'm realizing that especially in the beginning, imposter syndrome would like leak in. And then what would happen is I would have this great advice for somebody, but I'd be afraid to tell them it was my idea. So I'd be like, oh, Denise, I had this other client and she did this, and all of these amazing things happened. And then they would leave and they'd come back and be like, that was such great advice. It was my advice. My client didn't do it. I just made that up because I got so nervous about sharing. Like, I have all these ideas, but do you really want to hear them? And so that was a huge problem. And I think shiny object syndrome happens a lot. I would start 10 million projects and then like I'd put half of my effort into it, panic, and then see something else and be like, this is the answer. This is what I've got to do. And then that would happen all over again. And so I have, I don't know, 15 half-written ebooks that are amazing. I have classes, full-on classes that are just sitting in my computer that people would love, but nobody sees them. So I think those are probably my biggest like sabotages.
And here's what I want to hear from you. I want you to think of baby you, okay? Because Janet really brought up that really interesting thing about being a kid. And I think sometimes alchemists feel like they're in arrested development of going, people won't take me seriously. Grown-ups won't listen to what I have to say. I'm not like, and that whole imposter syndrome thing around, you know, your childlike ideas and spirit. It could be something like that. And tell me, when did this alchemy show up? How did it show up for you? And what negative feedback did you get about your alchemy? And it could have been like, oh God, they're doing it again. Oh, and yet another thing. Or, you know, put that away or stop daydreaming or something like that, because I want us to be able to connect with when you realize that this wasn't a valuable thing, or when you thought that this is something that has to stay in your childhood, or it's, you know, it's not just an innate sense of who you are, that is valuable in the world. Does that make sense? And go wherever you want to on that. But I want to hear a story about your, you know, your younger self and how the alchemy was always there.
So the first thing that I thought of when you asked that question was I remember my grandmother who was totally a romantic alchemist. She never lifted her finger and had everything she ever wanted. She just like dreamed it up. She never felt like she didn't deserve anything. She deserved all of it, and so did everybody else. But I remember one day she used to say, and she used to say this to me all the time, but I remember the first time she said it, and she said, child, you don't ever have to be normal, but you need to be smarter about your crazy. And so it's funny because as an adult, my sister and I were talking about how she always used to say that to me. She never said it to anybody else, just to me. But it was it, you know, just made me think of it when you asked that question, how this romantic alchemist was like, listen, I'm probably the only one who gets you, but we need to be a little smarter about where we show our crazy and how we handle it. I loved that about her. But what's interesting is ruler is like a close number 4, and it never really made sense. And when I started doing this work, I realized my mom is a ruler, my dad is a ruler, both of my step parents are rulers, all of my aunts are rulers, 2 of my uncles are rulers, my best friend is, I'm like, so, and so it's like I sucked up that rulership, not because it's who I am, but because like I just adopted it as like, this is the way of life. And I'm very lucky because I have a wonderful mother. She's amazing. But as an accumulist ruler, my mom, I was the child that like, I'm also a shamanic herbalist. So as a child, I was out there like talking to the trees and making friends with the flowers. And I can remember bringing all of that stuff into the house and trying to make potions. And ironically, I didn't know what alcohol was, but like I was really close to figuring it all out, like how to make tinctures and medicine. But I didn't know what alcohol was when I was a kid. So like that was my missing piece. And I laugh because now I'm like, if my poor mom had any idea that I would get paid to make body scrubs and mud masks for my clients, I wonder how she would have responded to me. So she was like creative and understanding, but she didn't get it. So I can remember from the very beginning, just like being this weird, earthy, interested in all of that stuff. And everybody around me was like, what are you do? Like nobody took me seriously. And there was a portion of my life where it was like, oh, that's just Stephanie, like that's just her. And then there were times where it was really difficult because when I wanted to open my business, they were like, are you sure that you're going to be able to handle that. But what I remember most about my grandmother, who was different from everybody, was not only did she tell me that, but every year for Christmas, she would buy me books about astrology or henna or whatever I was into. And she just really, in her quiet, easy way, was like, listen, I don't get it, but that's okay because it's not for me to get. Here's all of this stuff. And I'm really thankful for that, because I think that if I didn't have that like matriarch figure going like, I know I don't get it, but I still love that you love it. That was a huge like thing for me. So yeah, I don't know if there was ever like a particular moment, but all my life I remember feeling like the odd, weird, witchy, earthy girl who's like talking to plants.
The thing that I love about alchemists is that your power doesn't wane over time. Your power only gets greater over time, which means, it makes me want to cry, which means that you guys can be the wise grandmother for other people, because you're only going to get more and more powerful. And that impact is going to be so important for the baby alchemists who really need to hear that. Or for people who don't have alchemy as a natural part of their life, and you can help them to see that that's really important and valued in the world. It makes me want to cry thinking about it. But it is, because it is valuable. And I think hopefully we're turning that corner into valuing things like that more again, not just the dollars and cents. So I want you guys to type this one in actually, or you can just show me by show of hands. How many domain names do you own? Okay, so Stacey's got 3, 2. Okay, yep, 7. All right, 2. Okay,
I don't know. It's more than 10.
Okay, that's cool. That's good. That's fine. So I just want to shift gears for the next 15 minutes and talk about you and the world of entrepreneurship and the world of courses. Because when I was talking to the accumulators, there's some really interesting stuff about what makes them join a program versus what really turns them off a program. And so sometimes I find that alchemists, they just feel into it and it's like, yeah, cool. But is there something that you see either, from joining SMA or joining boot camp, or things that have turned you off where you haven't joined other programs, or you took a while to join mine? I don't know. Is there something you just go, yeah, if I see that, it's not for me? Or if I see that, I go, yes, that is for me. And we don't have to go in any order. Just literally just put your hand up or unmute yourself.
I think for me, working with somebody who has a lot of substance to what they have to share and isn't too airy-fairy, because I can get lost up there. But at the same time, if I encounter a program that is over ruler energy, like in your face ruler energy, where you have to do this and you have to do it this way, and here's the program you need to use, and it, like just saying that gave me anxiety. So like in your program specifically, I loved that you were like, hey, there are all of these different ways and all of these different things. It's not going to be the same for me as it is for you. And if it gets like overly ruler and overly accumulator, I get lost, because if I'm like, I can't do spreadsheets or Excel. It has to be pretty and colorful, or I'm out of there. I can't, like, I just glaze right over. So if the first thing I see is like, hey, here's this spreadsheet with all the information you need, I'm out, like immediately out.
So, are you a ruler, a connector, or a maverick? Hang on, maybe you're more of a romantic or a celebrity. Take the money personality quiz right now and find out which of the 8 money archetypes you are. And then I'm going to teach you how to profit from your strengths and make money in your business based on your natural personality. Click below and find out more.